Welcome to Golden Black Live, our February the 24th edition, joined by Mike Harmon and Tom Dienhart. I want to thank our sponsors, Triple X, On the Hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. And also the good folks at WLFI, Gordon Jackson, Mary, everybody else who puts that together. We're grateful for that as well. All right, I'll start with you, Mike, and Tom. You know, you've been watching Purdue sports a long time. Tomorrow night in Mackey Arena is hard to understate. I think it's the first primetime men's basketball game between Purdue and Indiana on a Saturday night, I should say, ever, or in the history of Mackey Arena. But it's going to be nutty in there. Would you agree with that, Mr. Carmen?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're the historian here, so I have no idea. I'm
just old.
I know. Well, so am I, and I got older this week.
Yes, you did. And a happy birthday to you yesterday.
But you would know. Has Purdue ever clinched a share of a title against IU?
Well, yeah, they did in 2017.
Okay, all right. So yeah. My memory's fading on me, but I think I think that adds to what Saturday could be. They got help last night from Illinois beating Northwestern to put them in this position.
Yes.
And now they have some opportunities to take advantage of it. I think all that adds to the potential nuttiness of what's going to happen. And I think from Purdue fan standpoint, the perfect scenario for them is, you know, they got beat in Bloomington earlier in the month. Now come back, have a chance to clinch at least a share of the Big Ten title on Saturday against your rival at home in that environment, in a conference race that you've led virtually from start to finish, and you have established yourself. You know, you can debate this, or other people might debate this, but you've established yourself as the best team in the conference when you look at the big picture. Now, everything changes game to game, week to week. Purdue may not be playing the best of any team in the conference, but when you look from start to where they may go the next couple of weeks, I think they've proven themselves to be the best team in the league.
Yeah. Tom, and you've been around watching Purdue sports for a long time, and there were some amazing games in the 70s when Indiana was winning 136 straight Big Ten games and barely got out of Mackey Arena alive in each of those games against only one of those two Purdue teams was ranked. Just this rivalry and what this does. I mean, Mike Woodson's maybe rekindle it because Indiana's even more formidable player. But to your perspective on looking at this from a rivalry standpoint, it's a big deal and a rare opportunity for Purdue.
Yeah, boy, this maybe Mike can speak to this too, but this week off has to have been a big boon to the team as well, right? Just sort of recharge their batteries, reset, if you will, for this final 3-game stretch, and try to work out any kinks that may be popping up or had been popping up. So you're right, Alan. Boy, this is one of the bigger Purdue IU games we've seen in a long time, and I can't imagine the atmosphere there, guys. I've talked about it before. You know, sitting in that place when Knight was the coach, and when he would walk out on the court, just that place would explode. It always gets back to that story. You always need a hero and a villain to make every story good, right? And for a long time, this game with IU wasn't a lot of fun because there wasn't really much of a villain there. They weren't that good. I know Purdue fans don't want Indiana to be good, but that's when this rivalry is really juicy, right? When there's a lot of back and forth and anybody can win it, where it looks like it's getting a little more level water at this point. And Mike Woodson brings a lot of history to the table too. So this looks like it's going to be a fun era for that Indiana-Purdue rivalry.
All right, good versus evil from a Purdue perspective, I should say. And that's clear. Is good as Zach Edey, evil, if from a Purdue perspective, is Trace Jackson Davis. Both terrific players, have had great seasons in the Big Ten. Both in many years, I think Trace Jackson Davis could be the Big Ten Player of the Year. Where do you sit on that quasi argument? I think, you know, in terms of just the way that those two have gone head to head, and obviously Saturday night would make, you know, add another chapter to that. How do you see that in from that perspective? And it seems pretty clear that Zach Edey is the national player of the year, but how do you view it from a Big Ten standpoint?
Well, I still think he's the Big Ten Player of the Year. Again, when you look at the big picture, when you look from start to finish, what he's done. Trace Jackson Davis has really come on here lately, and he gained a lot of momentum in that discussion. But I kind of equate it to what happened last year a little bit, where Johnny Davis was the best player in the Big Ten last year from start to finish, and Wisconsin won the league. But Keegan Murray was playing the best at the end of the year. And I know there were some people like, well, Oscar Murray didn't get Big Ten Player of the Year. I said, well, it's not a 4-week award.
Yeah.
It's a 2.5 month award. And I think Zach has proven himself over the long haul to still be the best player in the Big Ten. Now he needs a little help to be the best player in the Big Ten, because he's not a point guard. He's not a guy that handles the ball a lot, where, Trace Jackson Davis is not a guard, but he handles the ball a lot, and he can create his own shots and create his own situations sometimes. But what Zach has done this year, when you factor in everything about Zach, how long he's played basketball, how quickly he's developed, and I know it's not a career award, but all those things have led to this season where he's clearly the winner of this award. Now, Jackson Davis is going to get some votes. It's not going to be unanimous, but I fully expect Zach to be the Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah, you look at what Zach did. Though Jackson Davis had a good game in Bloomington, to say the least, especially the first half. The numbers were still in Edie's favor there. Tom, you got a big checkbook. I mean, you could get it out and write a $1,500 check for tickets tomorrow. It's just, it is crazy. I mean, what that's gonna be like from that standpoint. But as you look at the Big Ten race and where Purdue is guard play, and I'll get Mike's opinion on this as well. Purdue's guards have been really, really good, but they need to take another step forward. One would think if this team is going to get to where it wants to get to come not only Big Ten tournament, but certainly in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's a broken record. We've heard about it for years. We've talked about it. We've read about it. How once you get into March, I mean, it's the guard play really gets amplified, right? That the ability to create your own shot. With the shot clock winding down, who's gonna get it when you need to get it? Who's gonna create? And Zach Edey cannot create, as Mike said, as we all know, he's big guy's got to be given the ball, and obviously he has to be fed the ball by the guards, and that's that. I guess that's the one thing about Purdue you still wonder about. Do they have that creator? Can get his own shot when he's got to get his own shot. I think we've seen glimpses of some guys that can do it. I'd love to hear Mike's thoughts on this. Maybe who those guys are, and what you think of Purdue's ability to still handle the press. Everybody's got the book on everybody at this time. They've all seen the film and know your weaknesses, your strengths. Competition is going to get tougher once we get to the big dance. There's a lot of good athletic teams out there with some 6'8" guys that can swarm you. So again, just the backcourt play overall, I think is going to be the biggest curiosity for me. And it's not a big revelation to think that that's going to be what's going to either determine Purdue is going to have a long march, or maybe it ends at the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
I would just say some of the things that Purdue has gone through this year, and I think it started at Indiana with the physical play on the perimeter and the environment down there, I think kind of played a role into that first half. And then they were able to settle down in the second half. Fletcher Loyer is a guy that can put the ball on the floor. If you're going to overplay him, he has shown he can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim and create his shot that way. Braden Smith with the 2-man game with him and Zach, he's gotten in the paint quite a few times this year and either taken the shot, got fouled, dumped it off to Zach. So they have a couple guys right there that can do that. But that is, when you watch the Illinois game on Thursday night against Northwestern, who was the guy that put the ball on the floor and went to the hole and got Illinois that win. That was, that's something that probably Purdue doesn't have, but it's got other things I think that can counter that stuff. But yeah, you just worry handling the press. I think they've done a better job here recently. I think the experience at IU will help them Saturday night when they're going to see the same thing again. And I like the toughness of the 2 freshman guards. They not a lot phases them. from a mental standpoint, and they've had bad games. They've had poor shooting games. They've had high turnover games, but they seem to bounce back from that pretty well. And that's going to be a key on Saturday, how they handle that again, and can they get into their offense a little bit quicker than they did in the first half in Bloomington. I felt like they got stagnant out on the perimeter, in part because of IU's defense, but in the second half they're able to get into their offense a little bit quicker, and that's going to have to be the case Saturday. And plus, they just can't turn the ball over at the alarming rate they did in Bloomington, or they're going to get runouts and you're going to see the same result again.
Yeah, no doubt. We know that Lawyer is we understand a little bit of a calf issue, and that's maybe been a little bit of a problem. That's normal for this time of year. You also know that freshmen aren't going to tend to get whistles. They may beat you up a little bit. That part of it is another storyline as well.
Right, real quick from Mike again. Who are your X factor guys? Is it Brandon Newman? Is it Caleb First? Is there an X factor guy that's not always a frontline guy that's really going to maybe hold the key to Purdue?
I think Gillis comes to mind. First would be a guy that if he can get on the boards like he did against Ohio State, if Mason can get threes to go down on a consistent basis, once you get in the postseason, you're not going to double team him because you're paying so much attention to Zach that he's going to get his opportunities. And if he has that hot hand like he did against Penn State, he can carry you through the course of the game. Brandon needs to come off the bench and play defense, and he needs to see some shots go down.
Yeah.
And the shots are going to go up. They're going to go up, but he can play a role. And I think the other guy too, when Zach's off the floor, Trey Kaufman-Renn, now he's not shooting a lot, but the ones he's shooting, he's making. I think he's 15 of 21 the last 9 games. So if you can get production from that spot with Zach on the bench, that's a huge bonus. I think they have a lot of X factors. Zach is the biggest factor, and he has to keep his turnovers down. I mean, I think at IU he had 5, right, and then another game he had 6. At Northwestern, I think he had 6. So he's got to keep his turnovers down because the double teams are going to come fast and furious against him once they get in the postseason. So this is a team that I think, although they're dominated by one player most of the time, this is a team that kind of needs everybody to contribute and to produce for them to make any kind of deep run to win the Big Ten tournament, and also, go deep into March. They're going to need everybody to contribute in some fashion.
What does Ethan Morton have to do?
He's got to play defense. And again, he's another guy that's going to have some open opportunities on the perimeter. He had a couple 3-pointers against Ohio State. I think he's a really good offensive player, but his focus has been on defense. He wants to be a better offensive player, but the opportunities are really not there. But he's got to take advantage of those. He's a guy that can break the press and attack the press too, because I think he's a pretty good ball handler. And that's one thing I'd probably like to see Purdue do more is when you have the numbers advantage, go to the hole, get into the lane, make the defense make a decision who they're going to guard. I think, that's how you make teams pay. And I think too many times Purdue pulls it out and then they want to run their set. They want to get Zach a touch, which it's a great formula and it's worked all year. But, when you have the opportunity to kind of shove it up the opponent's, on the press, they're going to get out of it. And that's what I think they need to do.
Yeah. Interesting insight. And it's going to be, as Tom, to your point too, you got to make shots. You got to have other guys contribute. There's no doubt that you don't want to have a 3 for 20 shooting game and have Zach Edey go for 7 for 9. You're going to lose against good teams if that happens. All right, there'll be a lot more to come on the site next week as we head into Purdue going to Wisconsin and to Illinois, and we'll have the Fab 3 back next week. We'll probably there's also Pro Day coming up for football. We'll get Tom on that as well because
this is the power trio. This is what this is.
Yeah,
this is the Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, and if Newbert were here, we'd have the Fab 4. But
there you go.
You can still watch his stuff. He'll be doing his rap videos, and we appreciate that as well. What Brian's Brian's managing, is doing all that he can, and we appreciate that too. So we're going to take a short break, come back with Jerry Palm from CBSSports.com. We all know Jerry because we see him at Purdue games from time to time, and a Purdue grad. And then, of course, Bruce Weber will join us in segment 3. So a lot of analysis. By the end of this show, you will know exactly how Purdue is going to go for the rest of the year, because you got Mike Carmen's brilliance. You got all this stuff going on with Jerry Palm and Bruce Weber. Good stuff. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Stay tuned for more on Gold and Black Live.